This is the Sigma 300 to 600 f4.
We're going to compare it against the 600 f4 lenses from Canon, Nikon, Sony, all of which we use, and a really powerful zoom lens, 200 to 800 from Canon, to kind of see where this big boy fits in. Is it better than a prime? Can you get all the sharpness while being able to zoom back? And will it be a good zoom? This video is sponsored by DxO. They're a good fit for this because I use DxO to process my wildlife photos.
Puro is only about $100 when you use our coupon, and it can be launched directly from Lightroom or as a standalone app. $100 is nothing compared to what you spend on gear, but look at the huge difference it made in this image. If you want to escape Lightroom subscription fees, upgrade to PhotoLab, which gives you full editing capabilities. Check out DxO Smart Lighting. This brings down the highlights and brings up the shadows so I can see more detail in the feathers. DxO Clearview Plus can just dial up the intensity, dial up the drama. This has 3 levels of contrast: contrast, micro contrast, and fine contrast. Now we can use the deep prime noise reduction algorithm and clean up that noise without destroying the detail. Check out the before and after. Crazy.
If you want to check out DxO's software, go to this link. Thanks for sponsoring us, DxO.
Let's first talk about the design. Now, the first thing you probably notice is that it's bright white. It's actually a beautiful white, and it has thermodynamic paint on it to keep the temperature down. I don't know how that works. I haven't measured it. Aside from that, you're probably noticing the size. It's about the size of a 600mm f4 prime, so there's nothing unusually large about it there. The weight is about on par to the 600 f4s from Canon, Sony, and Nikon. It's about 8.5 pounds. But some design elements that I think are really beautiful and different is the general shape. The way it's kind of sculpted, I think, is really pretty and unique. I've had other photographers comment on it already. I love the contrasty design, like these black knobs. But in more practical matters, they have this really beautiful new function turning dial here. And something else that's a nice design that's also functional is this built-in quick release plate, which is typically a separate piece. But it's all built in one, and it's got me wondering, why doesn't everybody do that? I think that they should. Now we've got different programmable buttons here. These are the programmable buttons, but here you have autofocus, manual focus. You have the 2 modes, mode 1 for still subjects, mode 2 for moving subjects, which is what applies to me most of the time. And then you have some custom buttons here as well. Overall, I think it's a really beautiful design, and it is a little bit heavy, but I can handhold it, and I'm not the strongest person, so I think you could probably do it too. Tony went, because he knows I am the strongest person. I lied. Oh, I forgot. It also has this little thing here for filters that you can put in. I don't do that, but you might.
So the Sigma is a zoom, 300, 600. That's a 2 times zoom. So how does it compare against, like, really the best zoom that we've tried, which is the Canon 200 to 800? Well, it doesn't have the same zoom range, 2 times versus 4 times. But really the big difference is like the size and the weight. Like, if you have to hike a little bit of a distance to get to your wildlife spot, you're gonna be way happier with this one. Like, this one really tires me out. And if you're waiting for an osprey to catch a fish and you're holding the lens up the whole time, again, the lighter zoom is gonna work out way better for you. Like, I have a hard time holding this one for more than a few seconds. I just have to, like, be picking it up and putting it down. So that means we'll probably want a tripod for this, and tripods limit your movement range, whereas you won't need it for this, so then you end up carrying even more. If you're shooting from a kayak, oh, for sure, I would pick up this. But the fact is, at 600mm, this produces sharper images. And if you do have to crop, if you can't fill the frame at 600, you know, the Canon 800mm zoom, the Sony 800mm zoom, the images are pretty similar in sharpness. They're both really sharp.
You can see an 800mm zoom actually gets closer, so you'd have to crop less. But let's zoom in and match the crop. I gotta say, the sharpness here is pretty much indistinguishable. So if I were comparing only sharpness, the lighter, cheaper 800mm zoom would definitely win here.
So it's not sharpness that's going to make you go for this big expensive lens. It's going to be the aperture. It's that f4. Like, look at that big front element. It's that big front element that's going to have you pay the extra money and carry the extra weight, because that big front element, it's going to gather several times more light than a zoom lens like this. And that means in low light, your images are going to be more detailed, sharper, cleaner. It means if you're shooting a flying bird at 1/2000th of a second, even in full sunlight, your images are going to be better because you're going to gather more light. It also means this can blur the background far more than this, providing nicer images with more subject separation, more artistic, more pleasing images. So those are the reasons that you're going to want to pick up this bad boy over one of these standard zooms. And would I do it? Yeah, for sure, for sure. If you're a professional, if you want the best images possible, if you're spending days, weeks, months out there waiting for a bird, like the extra weight, the extra cost is totally worth it for the difference in results, in my opinion.
How does it compare to the Sony 600mm f4? Well, first of all, it's half the price to the Sony 600 f4, but it's a little bit heavier. I wouldn't say it's significantly heavier, but you might notice that little weight difference over time if you're hand holding. When we used test charts to see which one was sharper, the Sony 600 f4 was a little bit sharper. But when it comes to real world results where you have things like refraction and some atmosphere and some movement, the difference is very difficult to detect. So I don't think you're going to miss any sharpness when it comes to the Sigma lens. The Sigma lens, keep in mind, if you were to put it on a Sony camera, it's going to be limited by Sony to 15 frames per second. So you won't have as high a frame rate if you get the Sony version. But we were testing it on a Lumix camera. The Lumix camera did pretty good with the autofocus. Now, we didn't have the Sony version of the lens to do apples to apples comparisons on the A1, but it was fast and the autofocus was pretty good. It seemed like it was sharp and great, and I think anyone that gets it would be happy with it. Another thing to consider is that you have the benefit of zooming back to 300mm, and you know, if you're a wildlife photographer, sometimes your best opportunities for a shot are when they finally come close to you, and sometimes 600mm is actually too close. You end up cropping into the animal in some way. So I like the versatility of the zoom. And maybe you would too. I feel like I should mention that we're getting gusts of wind up to like 30 miles per hour right now, so I apologize if that's a problem for you. It's a problem for me.
So who should buy the Sigma 300-600?
Wildlife and sports photographers, I think, are going to be happy with this.
Yeah, it's as sharp as the 600 f4 with the benefit of zooming back, and oh yeah, the benefit that you have about $6,500 in your pocket. Like, that's a big deal. It's also the first really big capable wildlife lens for all of L mount. So if you have an L mount camera, especially this S1R II, which is going to be the most capable, yeah, I think this is a great fit that's going to be a big jump over whatever lens you're currently using. For Sony users, there's nothing like it. Like, it's something unique. It's gonna beat the other zoom lenses, albeit it's gonna be heavier and more expensive, but so much cheaper than the 600 f4. If you can handle the extra weight compared to the Sony 600 f4, yeah, I think it's a great choice. And I think they're gonna have a hard time keeping it in stock. Like, I think so many people are gonna want this.
Yeah, it's a great lens. It's sharp, it's fast. I think anyone who gets it will be happy with it. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe. We're going to have more lens reviews coming out, and we do a ton of wildlife reviews, so check out our channel. And thank you, DxO, for sponsoring this video.
Here's the same picture processed in Lightroom and Photolab. The Photolab processing looks so much better, like it was taken with more expensive gear. Look at all the ugly color noise that Lightroom leaves in there. Photolab just removes that automatically. But if I do want to edit it, look how easy it is to crank up the intensity of the Clearview Plus. And I have settings for micro contrast and fine contrast. Going back to the comparison, the Photolab version has depth and contrast, whereas the Lightroom version just looks flat.
And remember, no subscriptions when you work with DxO. Thanks for sponsoring us, DxO.
And thank all of you for watching. See you next time.